You normally see me in Houston on the Champions Club live stream, but today I'm playing in the main room for some low stakes 1-3 action. The buy-in today is $500, but don't let the low stakes fool you as I get into plenty of action-packed pots here in Texas. My hot streak just never seems to end as I hit 3 sets with my pocket pairs and top it off with a crazy hero call in a 240 big blind pot. The action today is going to start with pocket fours from under the gun, so raise to 6 and a call. I decide to call as well. We bring in a 4th player. Off to a flop we go, which comes jack, 8-4, bang, we flop bottom set. The board is monotone, so of course we could have gotten out flopped with 2 spades. Someone could also have an ace of spades or a king of spades. There's a bet to $15 and the player on my right puts in the call. This time we're going 3 ways to the turn when the button finds the fold. And the turn gives us a boat with the 8 of diamonds. The action now checks over to me, and I think it's time to bloat the size of the pot. $35 seems small enough where we'll get called by all of those ace and king high flush draws, and I don't think anyone's folding a jack in the spot for that price as well. When I bet 35, we're going to get 1 customer. Off to a river we go, which shouldn't change anything. It comes the king of hearts. The opponent continues with his passive line and checks it over to me. I decide to go 80 into 140. I think I'm going to get called by a lot of worse hands. Obviously I have 4 full of 8s. When I put out the bet, the opponent thinks about it for a little while before finding a call. No good, sir. This $300 pot is coming over my way. Let's go. Alright, this next hand is fun. There's a raise to $15 and 2 calls over to myself in the small blind. I decided to come in for a 3-bet. You usually want to go 4x from the small blind plus a bet for every one of the callers. So that's around 6 times the size of that $15 raise. I decided on a sizing of $85. Is that going to thin out the field? Well, kind of. We end up only getting 2 out of the 3 players to put in the call. It's a bloated pot here, $273 in the middle, and the flop comes all brick, 7-5 deuce with 2 clubs. Since I'm out of position against 2 opponents with just ace high, I think checking is definitely the play. I check it over to Chris and the cutoff checks behind. The turn now pairs the top card. It comes the 7 of diamonds. Could debate going for a bet, trying to get called by some worse ace highs, and maybe folding out a hand like ace king as well. But that's not what happens. I decide actually to check it over to Chris, who now goes for a bet of $75. Humboldt, the player in the cutoff, wants absolutely none of this from Chris, finds the fold, actions back over to myself. Something is telling me that Chris is trying to make a move. After all, I did check the flop and the turn, so my hand looks exactly like what it is, ace high and king high holdings. Still, being out of position puts us in a lot of tough spots on the river, but I think I can float him here one time with my ace high. Maybe he shuts down on the river and we pick up a nice sized pot. I do in fact put in the call, and the river now comes the 3 of diamonds. With $423 in the middle, there's definitely a lot to fight for. I'm hoping Chris waves the white flag, but when I check it over to him, he jams his short stack in the middle for $145. The pot is now $568. It's $145 for me to call, but at the same time I have just ace high. If he had some bluffs here, they probably would slow down because it's only $145. It's not like he's sitting on 400 or 500 effective. But by that same logic, I'm getting great pot odds to call. So sometimes you gotta play the player, not your cards. I put in the call expecting to be shown a good hand a lot of the time. But on the other side of the coin is when we put in the call and he says you're good, I flip over my cards and he shows 10-9 offsuit. So he picked off a bluff here, $713 pot headed over my way, and ace king offsuit, good enough to take this one down. Right pocket ochos now from the button. There's 2 limps in front of me and I make it $15 to go. We get a 3-bet out of the big blind to $65 and one of the limpers puts in the call. I decide to call as well from the button. We're going to be in position the rest of the way, but don't tell the poker gods that because the flop comes 8-7 deuce, bang, we flop top set. On this flop, the original razor checks, which makes a lot of sense. He's going to have a lot of ace-king, ace-queen suited. The cutoff now jams, but it's not very big. $25 effective. Actions back over to me.
So you just saw him do a pre-tip that didn't work, but you did the exact same thing. How much did he tip you? The 3? I'm not going to let that slide. I call. I don't want to be out pre-tipped.
After a little bit of speech play, I decide to put in the call. The original raiser does as well. I know some of you guys are thinking I need to find the raise here and charge those flush and straight draws, but let's keep in mind that the player who I'm scared about is the big blind, and I don't really think he's gonna have like too much 9, 10, and 5, 6 for the straight draws, so it's really only like ace 5 of spades, ace 10 of spades, ace king of spades, and I'm fine seeing a turn card and proceeding from there. The turn comes a brick, it's the 4 of hearts, really shouldn't change anything. The big blind checks it over to me, and now I think it's time to charge the maximum from those flush draws. I decide to fire out for $115. The big blind finds the fold, the river card comes the 7 of diamonds. We're gonna take down this $389 pot, 8's full of 7s. We never get to see what the cutoff had. Alright, Jack King offsuit, there's a raise to 10 and 2 callers in front of me. I decide to defend the big blind for $7 more and we get a pretty great flop, which comes Jack 5-3 with 2 diamonds. Small blind checks it over to me and the action checks through, bringing in the 9 of diamonds, giving me top pair with the backdoor king high flush. The small blind now fires out for $20 into myself and 2 other opponents. I'm gonna play my hand for exactly what it is, a pair of jacks with a king kicker. And then if I back into the flush on the river, well, we can raise the pot at that point. Just a call for me, and we pick up the low jack as well, going 3 ways to the river, which comes the 6 of clubs. Small blind now plays a weird line and checks it over to myself and the low jack. After the small blind bets the turn and checks the river, I think I have the best hand. The villain of the low jack never raised, so I think I have him beat as well. I'm gonna go small here and try to target a worse jack, like jack queen or jack 10. Maybe a hand like ace 5 of spades could find a call as well versus some bluffs. And sure enough, we're gonna pick up 1 customer and then a second one. I turn over king jack expecting to be good. We kind of get slow rolled here. Pocket 3s from the small blind, decides not to bet himself or raise on the river. Well, he gets rewarded with $190, so I guess I should be taking advice from him. There's a limp, a raise, a 3-bet, and the action's back over to me from the big blind with ace 8 of clubs. Probably too weak for a 4-bet, but it's an action game. I don't want to fold the suited ace X. I decided to put in the call, and Chris finds the call as well, all the way over there from the opposite side of the table. 3 ways to the flop we go, which comes queen 4-3 with 2 clubs. Obviously, I have that ace high club draw, and I decide to start with a check. Action checks over to Rex on the button, who fires out for $20. Could definitely be doing this with ace king, ace jack, ace 10, ace 5. Maybe a hand like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, just betting his entire range. What does that mean? I think I could mix in some check raises here and try to get him to fold a better hand. I make it $65 to go. Chris gets out of there and Rex finds the call. The turn shouldn't change anything. It comes a 6 of hearts. I think betting again is the play. I don't think I need to go too large because in case he floated me with an ace king, ace 10, ace jack type of hand, I think a small bet will finally get him to fold. So when I fire out a patented Cinco de Mayo $55 bet, hoping he folds, but he does not. Puts in the call, which comes the 4 of hearts on the river. The pot is $325. Do I empty the clip here and try to get him to fold? Look over at his chip stack. He has a little bit less than $300. I definitely would rip it in if I decided to bluff, but after he calls me on the flop and turn, I think he has some showdown value. How good? I don't know, but I'm just not willing to risk $300 to get him to fold. I make a mistake in the short term because he checks behind with the jiggities, pocket jacks. For sure, we're not holding on for a river all in. But once again, I get outplayed here. Rex gets sticky on the flop and turn. Maybe I size up on the turn and he folds. Who knows? 325 headed over his way. Okay, it's time to get into the streets here with my favorite hand, pocket 7s. Few limps in front of me. We are gonna bloat the size of the pot. It's time to get our chip stack north of that $1,000 mark. $15 to go. Pick up a bunch of customers. Off to a flop we go, which comes king 10-6 with 2 diamonds. Obviously, I'm not going to bet into a gazillion players and the action checks through on the flop, but it's my favorite hand for a reason. If I don't hit it on the flop, the turn comes the 7 of clubs. Bang, we turn the set. With $99 in the middle, I'm probably going to bet 75 if it checks to me. But Rex doesn't want that to happen. He fires out for $20, probably representing a flush draw, straight draw, or maybe a king 9, king jack type of hand. I want to go for a raise here and charge all of the draws. Calling here would be a massive blunder. Usually when you go for a raise over a bet, you want to bet the size of the pot. It's around $100 in the middle, so something close to that would be good. I decide on a $90 sizing. Only Rex puts in the call, 260 off to a river, which comes the 9 of spades. Queen jack now gets there, and 8 jack gets there as well. So some things to consider, but after Rex checks it over to myself, I go for a $70 bet. Probably could have sized up to 77, would have been a little bit more iconic. But Rex finds the call, says he has a bluff catcher, and ace 9 of diamonds is gonna be no good, sir. $399 coming over my way. You can kind of see how a small bet there on the river got me paid the maximum. All right, there's a straddle to 6 and a call from the player on my right. I have ace queen offsuit, the parking lot hand, but we're trying to debunk that myth tonight. I raise it up to $30. We're gonna find ourselves going 4 ways to the flop when 3 hooligans put in the call. The flop comes pretty great. Ace 6-6 with 2 spades. We're either way ahead or way behind. The reason I say that is because when you're in this kind of a spot, you definitely could mix in some checks. The only card I don't want to see on the turn would be a spade, bringing in that front door flush draw. So I decided to play it tricky, start with a check, and the action checks through. The 4 of diamonds is exactly what the doctor ordered. This changes absolutely nothing, and now I fire out 3 green chips for 75 bones. Howard thinks about it for a minute and then eventually puts in the call. We're losing the player to our right, which means we are going heads up to the river, which comes the jack of spades. Really not the card I wanted to see, because obviously that brings in the front door draw. I think betting here and targeting any worse ace, like ace 10, ace 5, ace 9 suited, could be the move, going for a small bet. If we get raised, it's almost certainly a better ace, like ace 4, ace jack, or a hand like 2 spades, or of course 5-6 or 6-7. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I fire out for $55, but it looks like that bridge is now. Howard now raises us up to $155. Such a small raise. Initially, I just want to snap this off because it's only $100 more to call into the $489 pot. That's giving us some pretty insane odds. However, on the contrary, is Howard a good enough player to find a bluff in the spot, get me to fold an ace? I kind of played it tricky too, checking the flop, so maybe my hand doesn't look like I have 2 pair aces and 6s. Still, when the most obvious front door spade draw completes, just don't think I'm winning against too much. He also could be raising a 6x holding, pocket 4s, pocket jacks, ace jack all has me beat. So at the end of the day, I ignore the pot odds and find the fold. I let him know that I had ace queen offsuit, hoping to incentivize him to tell me what he had. I think this is a great fold until he turns over pocket 3s, the crabs.
Wait, I gotta get that, I gotta get it.
Wanted to make the vlog, and sure enough, you will do that, Howard. When you turn over pocket 3s on that board, you get rewarded with the pot. You get rewarded with being on the vlog. I feel like Oprah. You get this, you get that. But you know what? I am getting absolutely nothing. I'm embarrassed, tails between the legs, and my chip stack is going in the wrong direction. But I have pocket 8s again, so there's a raise to 25 over a straddle. I'm definitely going to come in there like swimwear, put in the call, and we're going multi-way to a flop. Hold up, what's that? Gauge on the button makes it $80 to go. It's definitely a small sizing. You probably should go 125 to 150. So when he makes it $80 and the action's back over to me, well, I'm gonna put in that additional money and hopefully we pick up Chris as well, can go multi-way to a flop and maybe flop ourselves a good hand. I ignored the pot odds in the last hand. I'm definitely listening to them in this one. 3 ways to the flop and it comes 9-7-6 with 2 spades. We have ourselves an open-ended straight draw and second pair. This is a much better board for myself than any of the 2 other players, especially Gage on the button when he 3-bets. So when the action checks over to him and he ignores that logic and decides to fire out for 120 into me and Chris on this very wet board, well, I think this is an interesting spot to put a ton of pressure on my opponent. I'm gonna have all the 2 pairs, sets, and straights in this spot. Gage really can't have too many of those other than pocket 9s and pocket 7s. Chris could have a bunch of that stuff as well, but I definitely have the range advantage. So both opponents are less than myself. I wanna play for stacks. $330 is the effective bet at this point, and that's what I'm gonna do. Jam it all in and see what happens. After a bit of dilemma, Chris decides to put in the call. Is this a semi-bluff for myself? Is this a value bet? We're gonna have to find out. And now Gage goes into the tank. I was hoping everyone would fold. I would pick up the pot nicely and protect my pocket 8s versus a hand like ace king or ace queen. But after Chris calls, Gage now goes into the tank and he's thinking about the pot odds and eventually decides that this 120 is not coming back his way, folds his cards. He looks a little bit disappointed. He probably wanted to put money in the middle. It was just a little bit too much, but we are going heads up with Chris and we're gonna run it one time. He turns over 10-9 offsuit, so top pair, and he blocks the 10, which is one of the cards I needed. So we end up having 7 outs. There's 4 5s and there's 3 10s left in the deck. I don't want to hit an 8 because that would make Chris the 10 high straight. So we have 7 outs going once, 2 cards to come. We have around 30% chance to win this. Definitely not the spot we wanted to be in. The turn comes the queen of diamonds and the river slowly comes out, the 4 of hearts. $690 going over Chris's way. At one point we were up to like 12 or 1300, but our chip stack is decimated after a few bad plays and a few bad runouts. Looks like Gage would have hit his queen on the turn and scooped this pot, but I shoved it all in there. He's a little mad at me, but we'll mix it up in El Paso sometimes. And yeah, let's see how we did on this session. So I bought in for 500, cashed out for 575, so a small profit of $75. Could have played a little bit better in a few spots, but I still made that sick hero call with ace high, put my cape on, and was rewarded. $75 in a few hours is a pretty good hourly if you ask me. These small stakes games here at Champions Club are definitely beatable. Tons of actions, a lot of drink flowing around, and if you guys live in the Houston area, definitely come check it out for yourself. There's a few other videos on your screen right now. Good luck on the felt, you guys, and I'll catch you as always in the next video. Peace.